You know what the coolest thing in the world to me was? When I was a kid, it wasn't an interception. I used to go across the track in my neighborhood and there was a swimming pool, right? And I used to go by the swimming pool and I would stand on the fence and I would see a father, and when he would grab a kid, whether it was his son or his daughter, and he would throw the kid up in the air and he would catch him and the kid would laugh, and I would be like, man, I can't wait until I get a family one day so I could throw my kids up and catch them in the pool, right? I can't wait until I can hug my mother with 2 arms, hug my wife, hug my 3 little sisters with 2 arms, and it's things that people take for granted every single day. And so when I said to him physically, I'm like, JD, all of those things are eliminated. I said, but I will use this arm in his hand every day of my life for the rest of my life, because I would never allow a situation or a circumstance to define my life. I said, JD, what better way for God to show up than in the midst of the opposition? What better way for God to prove his power and his grace than in the midst of the adversity? I said, JD, what better way for God to work in the lives of those I'm connected to than in the midst of the opposition? The only thing I've ever done was stay out of God's way and say, God, you're going in that direction? Okay, cool, let's rock. God, you want to do this with my life? Cool, let's rock. I never wanted to speak. They put me in public speaking in college. I dropped the class on the second day. I despised it. As I was walking out of the class, I said to my buddy, I was like, man, I'll never be needing that. And the coach was on the other side of me and he said, Inky, you never know, until the point of complete confusion. Because as people, what do? We try to control, like in certain areas of life, they'll call it controlling the narrative, right? When you try to jump out in front of situations, opposition, trouble, and you try to control it. Like if we walked out of this building right now and we walked down to the high school with 10 people and we said, okay, when we get to the high school, I want 5 people to go right, I want 5 people to go left. Everybody would probably turn around and say, why? Why do you want me to go left? Why? Why should I trust you to walk down to the high school? We want to control the narrative. We want to know what's next. And so when my injury happened, I'm still trying to control my life. And I said, okay, I'll become a coach. I'll coach. Football, natural transition. I start down the path to become a coach. 3 years in, graduate assistant. My wife is back in Atlanta teaching. She calls me one day and she says, Inky, I'm pregnant. Somehow I got pregnant. I don't know. Somehow it happened. And I go to Coach Fulham. I said, listen, here's the deal. My wife is pregnant. I really need to go back. He said, man, go be there for your family. And I call a guy trying to control the narrative. Me and Pastor was talking about this. He said, God cannot work and God cannot take you where he wants to take you until you allow God to take you where he wants to take you. And most of the time when that happens is when you say, I yield, because you're in such a place of confusion in your life and you can no longer control it. And so it places you in a position to where it has to fortify your faith. And so I called the guy and I said, man, listen, I'm coming to Atlanta. I really need a job. And he worked at the rec center. And he said to me, Inky, you can come, man. You can create curriculums for the kids. I'll pay you $20,000 a year, whatever. And you can just ride it off into the sunset. I said, praise God, I'm coming. And I get there the next day and I go up to the gymnasium. I call the guy. He never responds. I email him, never respond. The people there, I give them my resume, my paperwork, and they say to me, oh, you're overqualified. I said, what is that? They say, yeah, you can't work here. And I found myself in my wife's grandmother's home. My wife have our daughter, Jada. Jada's sleeping in a wagon that somebody bought her for her birthday, and we would put pillows in the wagon. And I'm 2 blocks away from where I grew up in that 2-bedroom home with 14 people. And I'm like, God, why did you take me from this neighborhood to the University of Tennessee, play football, get 10 games from the NFL, and bring me right back to the same neighborhood in my wife's grandmother's home with my daughter sleeping in a wagon and no money? And I would get up every single day. My wife would get dressed to go teach. I would get dressed and I would go look for a job. And people would say, you're overqualified. And I knew most of the people were saying this because I got a disability. We're looking at it in terms of, man, I don't know what I can do with this guy. And I was cool with it. I totally understood it. And at the time, the only thing I had was my book. And I had written my book as a journaling process to help me get through my injury. And so I would just journal, I put it in book form, and I really just wanted to give it to my grandmother. And one morning I get up with my wife and we're getting dressed and she's in the mirror and I'm standing there beside her and I say to my wife, babe, you're not gonna believe it. She said, what you got, Ink? I said, I'm headed to Chicago. I'm about to go meet Oprah and give her my book. And my wife looked at me, she said, Ink, you know Oprah? I said, nope. She said, oh, you know anybody at Harpo Studios? I was like, nope. She said, you sure? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, go for it. I had a 2X suit. I had a little bit over $200 to my name, and I had my truck. I went, I jumped in my truck, I'm praying, I'm like, Lord, please don't let me catch a flat. I catch a flat, it's over with. And I start driving, and I get to Chattanooga, and I call my buddy Jeff, that's in Knoxville. Jeff picks up, Jeff's an attorney, he's well off. All right, he's my buddy, I call him, Jeff picks up and says, Ink, what's up? I said, Jeff, you're not gonna believe it. He said, what you got, Ink? I said, man, I'm headed to Chicago to meet Oprah, I'm about to give her the book. Jeff says, oh, Ink, you you know Oprah? I said, no. He said, oh, I get it. Ink, I understand you're a highly ambitious person, but I need you to hang this phone up and call me back when you get to Knoxville. Chances of that happening are slim to none. I call Jeff when I get to Knoxville. Jeff picks up. He says, you're still going, aren't you? I said, yep. He says, stop by and pick me up. I'm gonna ride with you because I don't want you to be too disappointed when it doesn't happen. I pick Jeff up. We get to Chicago that night. Jeff goes up. Jeff gets us a room. Next morning we get up. I go to the front desk. I'm asking for directions. Jeff is standing in the corner getting ready to go work out. I get directions. I'm going to walk out of the building. Jeff jogs over. He says, Ink, wait. He said, I'm going to go with you, man. I'm going to get us a taxi. I don't want you to be too disappointed when it doesn't happen. We pull up to Harpo Studios in the taxi. Place is massive. People everywhere. It's when our last shows were happening. We get out of the car. Jeff says to me, hey, Ink, I'm going across the street to this coffee shop. I'm sure this won't be long. I'll see you in a minute. I get the book. I walk around the building. Every door that will open, I would run into the door. And I would say, hey, man, I'm Inky Johnson. I drove up from Atlanta. I want to open my book. And they would say, get out of here. We don't do that. I said, man, y'all rude. I thought y'all give away cars. Huh? I just got a book. And I got so discouraged. I went around the back of the building and I sat down in the parking lot and I looked up at the sky and I'm like, God, man, my wife's going to chew me out. And I get up and I go around the side of the building. At this point, everybody has went into the building. And it's one gentleman and he's sitting on the curb and he looks to be a homeless gentleman. And I sit down beside him and I say to him, sir, how are you? He said, man, I'm great. How are you? I said, man, I've seen better days. The irony of the situation. And I look up to my left. And when I look up to my left, coming down the sidewalk was Oprah and her security guard. And I stand up and I fix my suit. I say, here goes, right? And I start walking toward her and they're walking toward me. And I'm thinking in my mind, surely she's going to send security up, move me out of the way, but I shot my shot. And as I'm walking, they're continuing to come, and she stops dead center in front of me, and she grabs my suit and she shakes it. And she says, this is a nice suit. I said, thank you. I know she was shaking it to see if I had a gun or a knife or something, right? And I said, I'm Inky Johnson. I drove up from Atlanta. I just wanted to bring you my book. She said, thank you. I said, can I take a picture with you? No problem. We take a picture. She says, all right, I got to get in and do my show. I said, thank you very much. And she was walking in to go in the building. Jeff is running. Jeff says, Ink, tell her to wait. I said, no. Oh, yeah, little faith, right? No. Right? Yeah. You're right. Yeah. All right. And I go to walk off and the security guard says to me, hey, little man. And I stop. He said, come here. I want to tell you something. He said, I just want you to know what just happened never happens. He said, usually she'll send me up and say, move them out of the way. You know, tell them to send their book here and they'll never get it. I just want you to know what just transpired. It never happens. I said, man, thank you so much. Right. I walked off. I sent a picture to friends, family. I put it up on social media. Right. And everybody's response was, hey, Ink, are you going to be on the show? Hey, Ink, you're going to be on the book club? Hey, Ink, you're going to be on Super Soul? I was like, I don't know. I don't care. They was like, what you mean you don't know? You don't care. I said, that moment wasn't about that. That wasn't a moment about getting on Oprah's show. I said, I got up that morning. I was trying to see, was God still with me? I was trying to see, was God still with the kid that left Atlanta, Georgia, that had this dream to go to the NFL when he was 7 and got there at 20 years old? I just need to see. It wasn't about Oprah. I just need to see, God, do I still got the connection? God, do you still hear me? And so when it happened, for me, what happened was in the midst of the moment, it was confirmation when I was hugging her that God was saying to me, Ink, I got you. I got you, Ink. When I got back to Atlanta, people say, Ink, you need to speak. My simple prayer was this. Okay, Lord, I'll be obedient. People are telling me I need to speak. I'll be obedient. Send me where you got to send me. Out of obedience. Because in the Bible it says obedience is better than sacrifice, but you give the average person a task, and what's the first thing they'll do? Judge the level of sacrifice without first being obedient. They'll say, what do I got to give up? What is it going to cost me? And the first trip I got to speak was a 15-hour round trip to Mississippi, driving. And I get back home at 2 a.m. and my wife is standing there. And when I walk in the door, she's standing there. She said, how was it? I said, babe, it was great. She said, what you get? I said, they gave me this cool coffee mug. And she said to me, you sure this is what God called you to do? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, go for it. And I've been doing this for almost 13 years ever since. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you, right? Because as much as it is an honor and a privilege for you all, it's an honor and a privilege for me.
the level of let me take a real step back. If you're sitting in this chair and you want to do something that makes you happy and makes you money, let's just say that. I have no idea what people want in here, but fine. How many people happy money? Raise your hands if you want happy money. Raise it. Don't be scared. Great. Let me ask you a question. If you have the audacity to be happy and have money, which, by the way, the amount of people that have lots of money and are very happy is very small. It just is. If you want to be happy and have money, don't you think it should take a long time and it should be hard, right? That to me has been the most interesting thing. In this world that everything's so fast, and this world where one or two people look like Mark Zuckerberg or Travis, like where you can point to one or two people. You know, I don't know if you heard, there's 7.7 billion of us. But because you can point to one or two people that got it fast and a lot, all of a sudden everybody thinks it should be fast and a lot. At 34 years old, after working for 12 years, helping build my family business, I left my family business and I had no money. 34, no money. How many people here younger than 34? Raise your hands. D-Rock, where are you? Hold on, keep them up. D-Rock, where are you? Yo, right here, come here, look at this. Put the lights on, hands up. Look at this. Every hand here, stand up. Actually, if you raised your hand, stand up. Every person here standing is under 34 years old. When I left Wine Library day to day at 34 years old, I had nothing. When I started VaynerMedia, we started it in Buddy Media's conference room because I didn't have dollars to spend on rent. Imagine how early I think you are in your life. You can sit. Thank you. If you can keep the lights on, I like it. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. My friends, it's early. It's early for 100% of the people in the room. It's ridiculously early for 95% of this room. This internet thing, it's big. It's real big. We haven't even started. Please understand how lucky, that's the only word I have for it, how lucky you are that you get to live during this era. Right now, anything that comes out of your mouth that is complaining makes your grandfather want to punch you in the fucking face. You understand? Do you understand how much better you have it than every generation before you? This is such a ridiculously special time, and literally the far majority of this room is not going to take advantage of it because of the insecurity of worrying about somebody who they don't even know leaving a comment that they're ugly. Are you literally not going to take advantage of the actual ability to be happy and successful because somebody comes on your account and says you're stupid? But this is what's playing out. This is what's happening. I mean, look at different cultures. On the way here, do you know that one of the biggest things that was DM'd here is that there's a lot of people coming here by themselves and they wanted advice how to say hello to somebody that they didn't know? What are you scared of? They're gonna bite you? We are living in a very fascinating time. A very fascinating time. It reminds me of when new countries are born and people buy up real estate. The attention of this room is real estate. You're trying to get it. Everybody's living on these things. It's going to happen more, not less. You can judge it, that's fine, but that's what's going to happen. And so if you are not producing words and videos and sounds for these 7 platforms, you almost don't exist. Now, what you say, though, matters very much. And let me give you a couple advice points from somebody who's really won. The number one thing you have to always do is talk about what you know. I watch people try to talk about stuff they don't know every single day because it's hot. Whether it's cannabis or sports betting or blockchain or social media, people start talking about things they don't know anything about because they're trying to grab. They think they're going to get a fast score. Everybody wants a fast score. Do you know how many people have emailed me crying about buying Bitcoin at 10,000 a coin? Because it was going to be 100,000 in a year. People are looking for fast scores. You know how many people here spent $800 on a course because it was going to happen fast? Fast is bad. Fast is bad. Fast if you have talent and the right intent is amazing. Fast if you want cash immediately. So please understand the world you're living in. Take it into context. Understand how remarkable this era is. Next, this is the most important word. You have to deploy self-awareness. My friends, self-awareness is the most important word. If you don't know who you are, you have no shot. But do not be embarrassed of who you are. When I knew that I was an entrepreneur in the 80s, I got D's and F's in school, and that was not acceptable in the 80s and 90s in America. If you were a bad student in America in the 80s and 90s, you were a loser. My friends' parents looked at me as I was a loser, but I knew who I was. I was self-aware. self-aware. I knew that I was an entrepreneur. I wanted to go and sell things on the weekend. I wanted to study the prices of wine and baseball cards instead of studying for school. I knew who I was. Playing video games seemed like a waste of time 20 years ago. Now there are people who make $50 million a year playing video games. If there is something you know and you like and you're passionate about, but it's not cool right now or important, do not deviate away from your thing. Triple down on your thing. The other thing is, be self-aware. How many people here are an entrepreneur or want to be? Raise your hands. I'm just curious. It's a lot of hands. The reality is, most of you can't be successful. I mean that. I'm not saying it to razz. It's rare to be a successful entrepreneur. It's hard. It's a real talent. We don't think it's a talent now because it's so easy to say you're one. One of the most important things about being self-aware is knowing, do you have the stomach to be an entrepreneur? Putting entrepreneur in your Instagram account, easy. Living the life of an entrepreneur where nobody else is on the line except you, hard, lonely, scary, difficult. If you do it because it's cool or you think it's right or you're not self-aware, it leads to depression and loss of money. If you deploy self-awareness and realize you're a number 2, a number 3, a number 4, you find an entrepreneur and you win. Self-awareness. You have to understand who you are. Without it, you are massively vulnerable in society. And the fact that we now live in a world where you're more than welcome to be what you are, so much more. Maybe not in your family because your parents want you to be a doctor and a lawyer and an engineer, but in the world, yes. And so I highly recommend self-awareness. It is easily, in my opinion, I believe that self-awareness and the ability to actually give without expectation are the 2 bricks of happiness. And it's been a big factor for me, which has allowed me to go fast. When you're stable, you can go fast because you're not worried about judgment. I've been able to do a lot of things because I'm not scared to lose. Because if I lose, it's my loss. If I lose money or time, it's my loss, not yours. I don't care what you say in the comments. That lack of fear is what gives an entrepreneur an advantage. That lack of fear is what lets somebody live life in happiness. We have to start having more important conversations of the operating system of your life. There are people here that work more on upgrading their phones than upgrading their minds. I mean it. I mean it. I am desperate. Listen, to come here all this way to talk about tactics is a waste of time. To come all this way and have one person in here gain actual courage to do something is super worth it. And for me, it's a very simple game. Let me give a very big secret to all the kids here who are living their lives for their parents or based on their parents' judgment. There's a very big secret that parents never tell you. If you go the other direction of where they want you to go and you become really successful, they are really proud and make pretend they never pushed you in the other direction. The number one thing I fear and the number one thing I learned, and this is very interesting to me, I'm going to tell you a story I don't tell a lot. When I was a little kid in Edison, New Jersey, when grandparents came over, I would go play with the grandparents a lot. Maybe it was because I lost 3 of my 4 grandparents as a kid, but even as I get goosebumps right here on stage, it's because I think I've always been filled with a lot of wisdom and old soul. It's just DNA. It's nothing I did. It's just been in me. But I was always gravitating towards old people my whole life. I mean, really old. You know, I'm 7, 8 years old, I see an 80-year-old, I run over, sit next to them, and talk. My whole life, I loved it, my whole life. And the number one thing I learned in the first 20 years of my life, spending more time with old people than most kids, is the biggest thing I fear is regret. Regret is scary. Resentment is very scary. The biggest reason I push kids to do what they want versus what their parents want is because I'd rather them and their parents have 5 or 6 or 7 years of bad than 80. Because it gets very ugly when you're 60 and they're 80 and you lived your life based on what they wanted and now you resent them. It gets real ugly real fast. I would rather you have the pain for the next 5 or 6 years of fighting and then have one of 2 things happen, which I think both are amazing. Number 1, you were right. You were right and you are an amazing fashion designer, not an engineer, and you built a real company and your parents are going to be very, very proud. Or you were wrong. You suck at fashion design. Nobody liked it, but at least for yourself, you never have to live the rest of your life asking yourself, what if? You win both ways. You live in a culture, I know, I watch. You live in a culture with a lot of expectations. You live in a culture where parents treat their kids as a property that indicates who they are. So does most of the world. This is not a Southeast Asia thing. This is not a Indonesia thing. This is a world thing. parents are insecure too, and they like their kids closing their gap. We have to start talking about this, because now that it costs $0 to start a Spotify podcast, now that you can do that at 9 p.m., now there's nothing left. In 1974, not having money and time was an excuse. In 2019, it is not.